Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers. Ernesto, we have a very, very, very special episode in store for you guys this week on this very cold day here in Florida. I am freezing. I'm surprised. I don't know. Are you not wearing a jacket right now?
Because I'm in my home where it's warm. That's why. Like, I have the heat on. Like, as soon as I got home from work, you know, when I got up for work at 1:30 in this morning and I got to go to work, I was like, this is unnecessarily cold. But when I got back home, I defrosted. I went and cranked up that heat and I said, it feels nice.
You see, I'm afraid to turn on the heater in my house because it makes certain noises and then it starts to smell weird. And I was like, it's not used to providing that function. And so I just layer up, and I feel like I probably could just turn on the heater, but I'm doing the thing where I'm just gonna wear long pants, a hoodie. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that thing.
It's a good thing that Megan loves you. Anyways, I'm extremely excited for this week's episode because not only do we have a special guest, we are reviewing probably a movie I didn't realize I was gonna fall in love with. And I can guarantee you this movie is easily gonna be in my top 10 for this year. But without further ado, we have the beautiful Miss Christina Watkins. Thank you so much for coming back. We're going to be reviewing Jesse Eisenberg's movie that he wrote and direct, A Real Pain, starring him and Kieran Culkin. And then we're also going to be talking about Christina's book. She recently just wrote a children's book called Tiffany's Growing Garden, and I'm really excited to talk about. I got to read it to my daughter, so I'm excited to hear about your journey in writing it and kind of your inspiration and just everything involved in the process. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ernesto and Matt. It's an honor to be back and I agree wholeheartedly with you, Ernesto. This is a movie that I did not expect to fall in love with. And really, I think it explains why I have such a hard time with movies, because when they're this good, you want more. This is why I binge TV shows. Like, Ernesto will hear me say at work, I watched this show. Because movies, you don't get enough if they're this good. Like, It was not long enough.
Right? I mean, just right off the bat, I mean, one of the main things is that this movie is a solid 90 minutes. Like, you're in and out.
Yeah.
You are in and out
no
in
time
90
wasted.
minutes. Like, honestly, to your point, Ernesto, when the movie was over, I was like, oh, that's it?
I wanted more. I could have easily watched.
going with this easily.
I could have easily watched another 45 minutes of that.
Yeah, at least a limited series.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, what? Let's see. If each episode was 30 minutes, that's only 3 episodes. So this could have easily been 10 episodes worth of a story. But like, it felt like we weren't slowing down at all. And also good for Jesse Eisenberg. This is his second movie. The first one, his directorial debut as well as screenwriter, is When You Finish Saving the World. It was starring Finn Wolfhard and
Julian.
Yes. And I remember watching that movie and I thought, I was like, oh, this is a solid entry for Jesse Eisenberg. I can't wait for what he does next. And then like he comes out with this one. You're like, all right, so that was a warm up. This is a different kind of movie right now.
Yes. This movie was just so beautiful. It was beautifully casted. Kieran Culkin is phenomenal. Like, I mean, I loved everything about it. And it's hard to grasp me in a movie nowadays because I am so used to just watching these shows and having like a certain window to adjust to one wild moment. And then you get a break and then you go to the next episode. With this movie, I'm just like the whole time. And then I'm crying. And then I'm frustrated with with Benji. We'll call him by his name. Then I'm like frustrated with Benji, and then I'm like mad at Dave for being mad at Benji, and all over the place.
You're talking as if this was like a reality television show.
I felt so connected to it. I was like, I get it.
Yeah, this movie explores a lot about like different ways that we approach things, as well as different ways that we express our emotions. And it almost felt like each scenario through the eyes of Benji, as well as David, who's played by Jesse Eisenberg, as well as the collective group that they were with. Like we saw different reactions to different circumstances throughout this tour, as well as how they were interacting with each other, as well as how they were interacting with certain situations, how one was feeling. And it was literally just like a flood of emotions going into each situation that I didn't expect that after each, say, scene, you were coming out of it thinking of either the character or the situation differently than you would when we entered the scene. And I think for me, that was the part that was like, I can just pause and reflect on this for about 5 minutes to see what happened. And then we have to continue on. And then you give me another scenario about certain situations. And then you're like, oh, yeah, he's right. He's like, I don't know about that one. And then you're thinking about it, it's like, oh, maybe he has a point. I don't know. There was a lot of that going on in this movie for me.
That happened to me
that's why it should have
times.
been a TV show.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Or at least like a limited series. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But Matt, I think you're so right. There was a few times where like just the interaction on this whatever scene it is, like there's so many you could choose from, where it's like we had to stop, me and my wife, because I watched it with her, and we paused, we're like, so what do you think about this? And like we had a conversation about, not even about the movie, just about the interaction that he created within the film itself. Like that's how deep and detailed his writing is. Like it's unbelievable. But I think just to give the movie its due, we should like start at the beginning and kind of work our way through. Because I feel like there's a lot of points that I want to hit, and I don't want to make sure I don't miss anything. So
yeah. Okay, so we have the beginning of the movie, which starts at the airport.
Yes.
Which is already an interesting scene because I don't know. For me, I feel a little bit differently just when any movie starts at an airport. I feel like that's such a chaotic environment, and it can provide different interesting situations I think that happen at the airport. A movie that I saw recently that I had a lot of fun watching was Carry On Netflix. A completely different vibe than this movie. But like for me, it was like kind of like a weakness. It's like, oh, it's in the airport. Oh, all right. That's all right. The terminal. That's my jam right there. So this movie started at the airport. It's like, oh, it already has my attention. And you see kind of the world going around like Karen Culkin or Benji, and he's just sitting in the airport, just kind of watching things kind of happen and go by. And that's such an interesting place to do that because, you see so many different, I guess, situations that happen at an airport's already chaotic in the first place. And then you see people moving back and forth. You can meet a whole bunch of different people. And I liked how the camera kind of panned over how we kind of got introduced by Benji, because we had already passed him. If you were, the way the camera was moving was that we already passed our main character, focusing on something else. And then it kind of just turned back around to put the focus on him. It's almost like we were kind of circling the environment before we realized that this is where our endpoint was in the shot. And I kind of like that.
Blending in with amongst the people, if you blink, you'll miss them, don't overlook, or almost like you never know someone's situation amongst the big crowd of people at an airport.
Absolutely.
That's what I took away from that part. I was like, okay.
Well, I see you.
I see you.
Yeah.
I also appreciated the back and forth between both characters, whereas even in this interaction, you automatically have a picture of who these individuals are, like just like on an interaction, like just how they interact with the world, where it's like he's very carefree, he's like, oh, I've been here for hours, and whereas like David's consistently calling him like, hey, are you here? I just want to make sure, you got to make sure you get on time. He's like, And then he just shows up and meets him, and he's like, "Oh, you've been here the whole time? Like, I've been calling you for hours. Like, you didn't think to answer." It's like, "No, fuck, I got here hours ago. You gotta get here early to a flight." And I just think you could immediately tell like they're so polar opposite as human beings. But I think like their opposition is what like magnetizes them together. Like that's what draws them together, because they both want what the other one had. There's aspects of each personality that they wish they could see in themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you see that throughout the entire movie when Benji tries to explain himself and his reactions and his emotions to certain things to David. And David tries to respond back and say, well, basically, I don't understand why you do it this way. Benji then explains a little more, and then like the feet scene, without getting too far and revealing too much, but when Benji compliments David's feet, which by the way, I'm terrified of feet. So that was a lot for me.
And it was a horror movie. I had no idea.
Like, if you got a foot fetish, you've been warned. Foot phobia, excuse me, not a fetish. Anyway, certainly not a fetish. But even to that point, like David sat back and looked at his toes like, maybe I do have my grandmother's feet. Yeah. Like, not quite understanding what Benji meant to begin with, but something as small as that to like him reacting to the purpose of their trip and certain moments of the trip. I think it certainly emulates like you said, them wanting certain aspects of each other's lives, and how do you find that middle ground or just learn from each other and learn from how you operate.
That's so true. A perfect example, I think after they land, where they're in the car together and he's talking to him about his kid. He's like, do you want to see this video? And I think that quick moment where he watches it, but yet he goes back and rewinds it to watch it again, and the camera kind of focuses like more so on his face. And to me, that was like, you know, how great is it to have a family member's, you know, interested in your child, but then also like, you know, you could tell that he wants that for himself, like that longing for it, like jealous, but also like happy for him at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually a really good scene, and I think as we talk about the rest of the movie, this free spirit that kind of Benji has, and kind of just open to say what's on his mind, he's not really worried about social norms or anything of all those lines. Like if he has something in his mind, he's going to tell you it. And that's how it is. Like he's kind of an open book in a certain way on most situations. And then you have Jesse Eisenberg and I'm going to say both names again.
David and Benji.
David and Benji. And then you have David, who, like you said, he's the complete opposite of what that is. But you see them approach these situations differently, as well as trying to understand each other. And I feel like that was the main draw of the movie for me, is just to see how everyone reacted in certain ways. And you have like, because of that free spirit, just provided a kind of like, what's the word I'm trying to use? It's like just an interesting perspective. Like that was intentionally done for the rest of the movie. But yeah, then we get to the hotel, and then we talked about the feet. And then like, there was just like so many different things, is like even him wanting to like do something right away. Like he's like, I just want to, like, we had a long travel day. It's like, no, what are you talking about? Let's go out. Let's do stuff. And like he's open to do whatever he wants, and doesn't really like. In some cases that could be seen as selfish, but also it can be endearing. It's a hard line. That it depends on, you know, how you feel about, you know, the situation.
I mean, for when you learn about him, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ernesto.
No, I was gonna say well, because it's almost as if, like, at home, we learn later that he's just very lonely at home. So the last thing that he wants to do is just sit up in this hotel room. He wants to explore the city. He goes, this is what we're here for. Let's experience the life. He's like, I probably sleep so much at home. Why do I need to do all that here? Like, you know, I just want to experience life. Whereas, you know, David is like, well, I need to reset. He's more of a forward-thinking, future planning. He's like, I need to be well-rested. We got this Holocaust tour. We got all this walk-in. We've been traveling all day. Like, I need to get my 8 hours. And it's just the clash of that.
Yeah, and I think what I realized from the difference between the two and how they handle those situations, to me, it seemed as if, like, they're both, yes, grieving the loss of their grandmother, which you will see, throughout the movie. But I also think for Benji, because he is so lonely, being around someone, being around people, being in a totally new environment was like joyful for him. And he did not want to miss a second. Versus David, he has support when he goes home to help with his grief. He's got his family. So even though he's in a new place amongst new people, he probably is enjoying the peace and quiet away for a minute and just wants to chill out. And it's like, how does he support his cousin through his grief and through the pain that he might deal with, while also trying to get a little R&R on this trip, which I don't know if that's what he planned for. Yeah, I would never expect it on a trip like that. Yeah.
But I mean, to your point, so back to your point with the phone and showing, with David showing the video with his kid to Benji, like, and then also talking about his loneliness. Going toward the end of the movie, fast forward just a little bit, when he was offered to, like, hey, do you want to come, hey, come with me, let's have dinner with the family, is like, obviously he expressed interest of being with the family. They have this connective moment. They just went through this journey together, and he still decides, even though he had the option to be like, no, I'm just going to stay here and be alone. It's almost like that was his own way of feeling comfort in a way, like is going through his process, even though that's probably what he wants. He probably wants to maybe have that lifestyle, like very similar to David, where he has that support group, but also he's not willing to 100% accept it. And I feel like that is something that we'll see throughout the movie, but that's, toward the end of it as well.
And I feel like that's such a relatable theme to so many different people, where you're often presented with an opportunity that that you should take, but it almost like you get in your own way. Like you're stuck in your ego, you're stuck in your ways. And to you, it's more comfortable to fall back into that than to accept something unknown. Like for him to do that would be him taking like an extra step into his family and like being engaged with his wife and his niece or nephew. I don't remember if he had a son or a daughter, but it's like now he's encompassing these other people in his life, and he almost realized he's so intelligent. He almost realizes that how much effort it's going to take for him to do that it's just so much easier to just fall back into the abyss.
Yeah, but it's also, and I'm sure, Ernesto, you expected me to bring this up, it's a part of the unspoken mental illness that Benji lives with. Yeah. They don't necessarily address anything specifically, and disclaimer, I am no clinical psychologist, but with the connection and experience that I have with mental illness, to me he showed exemplary signs of bipolar disorder. And my sister lived with bipolar disorder, and the first thing that connected me to Benji was the fact he wanted to be by himself. And that could mean a number of things, but to me, I remember the days when my sister would just choose to be by herself. She wanted to be alone. She didn't want to carry her emotional moments amongst anybody else, even though she so badly wanted to be around family. She didn't want to burden anybody with that. And so maybe that was the situation that they wanted to allude to with Benji toward the end. Even though he wanted to be with his cousin, and he got on his cousin and was like, "You've changed, man. Like, you got married, you got this family, this, that, another." And it's like, yes, but also he's trying to now invite you into this new chapter of his life. But because of what Benji may or may not struggle with, he doesn't want to burden that on his family.
Right. And we have that burden that burden is actually expressed in multiple ways throughout this movie as well, that we will get into. But you feel that even David had that whole monologue that I wrote it down because I thought it was just a powerful like sequence of lines that he said. When we get to that, I'll speak to that. But like that having that burden for himself, not wanting to bother anybody else, that is a theme throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, I mean they land. And now we know they're gonna be a part of this Holocaust tour, which is, I guess, was a part of their grandmother had set money aside in her will for them to go and kind of experience this. And I was watching an interview with Jesse Eisenberg, and that's kind of like what inspired him to write and direct this movie. It started as like a stage play, and then it adapted into a short story, and then it merged into what would later be this film where, you know, he went to Poland with his wife, and that step where he visits at the end of the movie and they put the rock on, that's actually where he really went, because his grandmother had lived there. And it's like just like this all took place in Poland, but it's so interesting that you use like a pain as a form of pleasure, and we see that you know, throughout the entire film, and we kind of see that theme on the train later on. But it's this, like, you're going to go see these massive atrocities that happen to human beings, but yeah, you're going to go like stay in a nice hotel and lunch was provided. He said he was literally writing
first class on the train.
He was writing he was writing the story, and he was stuck, and he said he looked on his computer and it was literally an ad for an Auschwitz tour, and it said like a banner on it that said lunch would be provided. And it's just, and that's where the idea came from of like, well, like, why do we go experience pain? Like, what is the idea of experiencing pain? But then this movie also brings up a good point that relates to Benji's illness, where like he's thinking on a level like, well, is my pain even relevant? Like, look at what my family went through. Like, these people went through some real shit, and like like, I'm living fine in where I'm at. Like, this, what I'm going through is nothing compared to. So it's almost like he's battling with this, like, is my pain even real? Because it's nothing compared to what these people went through.
Yeah. That part of it was so beautiful to me, because, and really just the way Benji reacted to everyone's own personal reason for them going on this tour, right? So they all go through a circle and they're talking about why they're here, and they get to one woman, I think her name was Maria. Marsha, yeah. And Benji just kept interrupting her with like his outward thinking, and like, and at first I got frustrated with him. I'm like, can you like let her talk? I want to hear what she's saying. But the way she responded, it also was a gut check for me to know that everyone won't respond the way you expect them to, and that's okay. Embrace how they express themselves, and it leads to an even bigger conversation, which we saw throughout that circle that it did for him. And the pain that he carried, and feeling like his feelings weren't valid, yet trying to help everyone understand, like, why are we doing this? You guys don't feel sad? You know, I get it. Yeah. And I think he made other people realize that too, sure, in maybe an unconventional way. But regardless of how someone says things, I think it's a lesson to just hear someone out and listen. You know, that is what the least anybody can do in society, is just listen. And I think that movie and his role showed what listening can do, and it can help you sort of like look within yourself and look at the situation and say, okay, I can see where they're coming from.
And there's also like this kind of going off the title, a real pain. Pain is a essential part of this movie, and what is a real pain to you might not be a real pain to others. And I think that even a further contrast of like them going on this Holocaust tour, experiencing like one of the worst pains in history, going through that while also dealing, or like, I guess kind of going, either not reliving it, but like kind of paying homage,
walking the same path.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. In addition to going, you know, and kind of reflecting on your own pain, which is what the scene was what you were just describing. And then you also see a different kind of it, where going toward Benji's free spirit, it was like, I think we should be honoring the statue, yet we're going to take these fun photos around it. It might not be socially normed to be okay to do that. He's like, we don't take photos in front of this monument. This is meant to be reflective. And he's like, no, let's have some fun with it. And it was a different situation when we were like saying at the gravesite, putting on the stones onto the tombstones. His reaction was completely different between how he felt about looking at a monument and how he felt about, you know, visiting the gravesite. And I feel like, again, how do we deal with pain in certain situations, and how we express our own grief within those situations, I thought they did a really good job kind of exploring all those.
You just made me like think of something. It's almost like each site was a progression. They got like progressively like harder to look at. Like at first we're looking at this beautiful bronze statue, this beautiful statue in the middle of like this park area, and then we go to this grave site, and then we eventually obviously lead to the concentration camp, because then even in that aspect, every situation, like it almost like it hit him a little bit more. Like the first one, he was able to have fun because he was still disconnected. Like I think the purpose of the tour like hadn't hit him yet until we get further along. And I think he realized that, and I think that's why during that scene at the graveyard, he lashed out at the tour guide, because he's starting to experience pain, the pain of everything happening, and he's not sure like how to handle it. And I was like a way for him to this person who's like almost like he just loves the Jewish heritage, but he's disconnected in that it's not a part of his pain, but yet he's spending all his time like learning about it. And he was able to give him this critique that was kind of true, but it was like really rude. Like he let
the tour guide have it. He let him have it. He read him for filth, and it was. But it honestly, I agreed with him because it's such a sensitive moment. You don't want someone talking the entire time. It's like when you're watching, you know, something somber on TV and the commentator is talking the whole time. You want to just be like, stop talking. Like, let me have this moment. And now, granted, Benji did not have to read him the way that he did, but when you live with an illness, you cannot control certain things.
Right.
And there have been times when my sister has read me for filth, and I didn't understand when she did, but I'm like, oh, all right. Sometimes like the brutal honesty will just come out and they'll lash out, and the emotions, like you said, scene by scene got heavier and heavier, built up emotions, and he just exploded and didn't know how to control it. Though what he said was true. He could have been like, look, my guy, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate how much you're embracing our culture and our history, but can you just like let us have a moment?
Yeah.
And not fill it with just, you know, endless amount of facts. Is like these were people who lived these lives. They're not, you know, just part of, you know, this tour that that, you know, that people paid for, and they probably would want to feel that, you know, experience that information is probably very wealthy, but most of that stuff you can probably find online. If you're there at the actual site, you kind of just want to experience it a little bit.
I'm sure it feels different. I mean, I'm sure it just feels different to be there. To just, I mean, he even started when they were walking in the hallway. He's like, when they were walking in the street, you know, he would make comments about like, oh, you know, this is where our family walked. I wonder if this is where they still thought that they were going to be free. It's like here they thought they were going to be free, and then like right over there is where they were led to death. It's like, can you like just trying to get into the, and I don't know, I have such respect for that, of like at least trying to get into the headspace of what like the people who came before us went to, because as me being a first generation immigrant, I think about what my grandmothers went through. I mean, being what they went through with, you know, their my mom and my dad still in Dominican Republic, and them sending money for them to come back until they were eventually able to come over to this country. And it's like, I miss my kids, like when I go to work and when I come home the next day. I can't even imagine being away from them for such an extended period of time. And like that's like, to me, I this is where I relate to him, where like I understand, like trying to relate to that kind of struggle. Is like, you have it made. Like compared to what these people went through, you literally have it made. And then between the that scene, I can't remember if the train scene happened before or after this one.
Which one?
The train scene.
After the train was before.
When they
before the gravesite?
Yeah, the train was before the gravesite. The memorial was also before the train.
Yeah. I mean, because that was that whole blowout, and then that kind of leads into that whole, you know, going on this luxurious pain tour, and then like feeling the need to want to go to Coach.
Yes.
I mean, that was another moment where I felt like he was right in what he was saying, but the delivery was incorrect.
But then the irony, when they get left and then they end up running to catch the train and they end up in first class, and he was like, we deserve it this time. like, yeah, for all that running, you deserve first class.
It's funny because like let me go back a little bit because you guys said a lot. What I also found interesting with Benji, like even though his approach was maybe not as socially acceptable, like, and it can be a little bit harsh, the feedback that people were able to reflect on that brutal honesty that they got in that moment, like in the moment, like, oh, this guy's, what's going on with this guy, but then later in the scene, or like if they, the next day or the next time we see them together, and there's like, you know what, Benji, I really appreciate what you said. Like they had time to reflect on it. So like you knew that he wasn't wrong in what he was saying, but just the way that he said it just makes you feel bad. Most people will try to kind of let you down easy or try to give it a different approach. But in this particular case, that brutal honesty kind of gave it a wake-up call in the moment, and then had you reflect on it a little bit later, and then have that chance to talk about it shortly afterward. And even so, even toward the end, when the tour guide was thanking Benji for his brutal honesty remarks, he's like, "Oh, I said that? Oh, awesome, Dad. Also, dude, I'm glad you appreciated what I said." And it's like
I was rolling at that. I was like, "Oh my god!"
So
it's like it completely lost his mind. It was like it wasn't even a thought that he had. It was a thing that happened, and it was in the moment. But after that, it's like, "Oh, I'm good. Yeah, we're all good. You keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing. You're doing a great job. Great job. Like he completely forgot about the whole thing he said.
What's really funny about that scene is that, like, so we obviously have this whole theme where David wants to be loved by everybody. So we're in the graveyard scene, and he's like mouthing to him. He's like, "I'm so sorry." It's like, "I'm so sorry he did that to you." And the guy's like, "Oh, it's fine." So we fast forward to that scene, and then he's telling, he's basically thanking him for like lashing out at him. And then he literally looks at David and goes, "Bye, David." Just turns around. And then I was watching an interview with Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg, and apparently that was like a throwaway line, like that he was trying to do just as a joke to him. That wasn't even something that was written, but to me, that's like one of the best lines written in the movie. Like to me, that one line and that whole scene kind of played to that theme of like him wanting to be him, because like you could tell it bothered him. He's like, it's like, I was so nice to you. This guy was an asshole to you, and like that's all I get. Whereas like you give him this like heartfelt thank you and goodbye. I mean, it was just hilarious.
It was, and I mean, it was spot on though too, because you looked at David's face. David had like the ultimate blank stare. It's like, what just happened? How are you so kind to this person who just chewed you up and spit you out? But it's the testament, I think, to all the characters except the husband of the couple that was on the tour. He was not budging with Benji. He was not having him at all. But he was like, I want no parts with this guy. But
you're right.
To them, just not learning to not take things so personally, and to know the way people may talk to you has nothing to really do with you. It's just everything to do with how they deliver it. And if we take a step back and like take ourselves and our emotions out of things and again, listen to what someone has to say, it might make you realize a thing or two and want to look at a situation differently, like the tour guide, like the people who ended up, after Benji let out his spiel on the train about feelings and how they all should look at this differently, they're walking and two of the people were like, I thought about it and you're right. And they start sharing their own stories about how this is making them feel. So yeah, he may blurt stuff out and say things in a hurtful way, that brutal honesty, but they took their personal feelings out of it and listened to what he said.
And honestly, like going back to his name is Mark, who was the husband of the couple.
Yes.
He was kind of like the skeptic throughout the entire movie. Was like, I'm not buying whatever Benji's putting out. Like he had like this no filter, no reaction moment to anything he was saying. He was here on a tour, and like that was it. Like he's probably his wife probably had this idea. He's like, yeah, that'll be fine. And it felt like that he had no emotion going into any one of these situations. Like he was here to have some fun when they're at the monuments, and he's here just like this was a tourist attraction for him. And I that's the way that I felt that with his character was like, oh, I'm seeing this as a tour because he's in first class. He's like, why should I feel bad that I'm in first class? It's like that's the like whatever happened at the back then, the reason why we're here, why should I feel any personal pain relating to that? Why should I feel bad, or why should I not be in first class because of the struggles they had to go through. Like, why should I even be comparing the two? Like, this is something completely different. I thought that was a not the main storyline, obviously, but an interesting contrast within the group that they were having. You had some people responding very well to Benji, reflecting on his words, being personally affected by what he had to say to maybe change them into a different viewpoint. And then you have this guy who was just like, yeah, no, I don't know what this guy's doing, and we're just here. I'm just here for a tour, guy. I mean, I don't know. Damn, man. Like, give it a rest, you know? That was the vibe that I was getting.
But I think you bring up an interesting point where I think maybe each person who was on the tour kind of reflects like different levels of engagement with what they're at, because you go from these two who are like, they're honoring their grandmother. You have Marsha, who's like a divorcee, and you know, this is like her trip to herself and to connect with her heritage. You have this married couple where maybe the wife is very involved and the husband's like, I'm here, but you know, like this is a thing that I'm connected to, but it doesn't really, like, it doesn't affect him that way. Like that's how I he's like, I'm here to experience my heritage. I'm not here to be sad. I'm here to like embrace what they did and like honor where I'm at, because this is what they wanted. Like he's valid for feeling that way too. And I think the other person who was the most interesting, who we kind of haven't talked about yet, was Eloge.
Yes.
I thought it was so interesting to have him there as a character within the film, and come to find out that Jesse Eisenberg wrote that character from a real experience. This is a real person. This is a real story that he shared, and he got his blessing from him and his family to share, to have it be a part of his narrative. Like he was a part of like how they dressed him, like the dialect and how they spoke, and like certain narrative aspects about him. Like he was fully engaged with the story, and I thought it was such a beautiful way to honor him, because like it's true, somebody who went through the genocide and then later on converted to Judaism. And I think that's so beautiful that was the only way he was able to connect, was seeing the Jewish people go through the Holocaust, and that's why he was there. And I thought it fit so well into this narrative. I thought it was so well done. And also, I maybe inadvertently, I think it plays to how certain people see there's so much division, when really, like, look, people from two different races, but yet they're able to have this shared experience and realize that we're just humans who went through that all humans go through atrocities. But then these are the moments where we can relate and come together and realize that we are one, instead of realizing that we're separate. I don't know if it was related to, but that's as soon as they introduced him, that was my kind of like immediate reaction to him.
Wow, I had no idea he was based on a real person. I mean, it was his storyline, and having Benji even acknowledge it, like when he was going one by one for each person's story and was like, you have this guy who went through the worst genocide ever. And he's like, this person is here with us today sharing his story. But it does bring that unity aspect of it, how you can have different cultures, upbringings, backgrounds, all different parts of the world be able to come together. Even the tour guide, you know, the tour guide explained his connection to Judaism and whatnot. And so I just think it was a beautiful storyline of unity, a beautiful storyline of just what listening can do, kindness, and knowing that no matter how hard you think you've fallen, someone out there is going to want or wish they had something you have. Yeah. So I think it was a beautiful storyline of gratitude as well, being grateful for what you have, because someone else, like David wanting parts of Benji's life and vice versa, or the husband, I forgot his name again, saying we should enjoy this. Mark saying we should enjoy this. You know, they would want us to enjoy this. Right. But then Benji being like, no. Yeah. So like, absolutely not. Just a beautiful spectrum of emotions, a wide range of emotions throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, and then you have like some moments of levity, which we go back to the train scene, which following the like them entering the train, and then, you know, Benji having this outburst was like, why are we enjoying this first class luxury on a tour that is meant to have us reflect and feel the pain that they went through? So we know, you know, the whole, you know, so we were there and we're experiencing this. And then he kind of just exited, and then he kind of sitting in like just economic class. And then it's almost David still brings the lunch over that was brought to you by first class. And he's like, hey, I don't want you to make, oh, thanks, dude. Like he almost forgot about that outburst and just appreciative of the food that he had, was just given to him. And then again, then we have these moments of like levity where it's like, okay, that was a pretty deep scene. But then we get to the point where David's asleep and Ben's like, oh, he's sleeping. I should leave him sleep. David wakes up. Benji's like, he's like, oh, he's like, oh yeah, we passed our exit like a long time ago. And he's like, you didn't wake me up. I was like, oh, dude, you were sleeping, man. I don't want to wake you up. And he's like, your priorities are just insane. And he's like, your priorities are just insane right now. And then they had to exit the train to go back on the train going the opposite direction, and then having to invade the ticket person to only go back into first class. Is like, now now I'm laughing. Why was I like reflecting a minute ago, and now I'm like hysterically laughing at this next scene? And I think they did a really good job playing up the laughs as well as the sadness as well as the thoughtfulness of like throughout this movie. It's like it was a good balance for us to experience all these emotions as well as, you know, as the characters are feeling their own emotions throughout each scene as well.
I actually feel what's really interesting about that scene in particular is I feel like, as we were talking about Benji kind of be wanting that family life from him when he's looking at his kid's video, I feel like this is the opposite. This is David's moment for that, because in the moment he wakes up upset, but then once Benji's like, well, this is a plan, this is what we're gonna do, you can almost feel like this excitement in David. He's like, oh, we're gonna do some crazy shit, like, ooh, like I'm not used to doing this. It's like, because once literally you go through the whole scene and it's almost like a chase scene, like just the way that it's shot, and then he sits down and they for a quick moment you look at his face and he kind of has like a smile on his face, like I can't believe like we actually got away with it, like that was crazy. And like Benji's like, whatever, it's Tuesday, like it's like a normal day for him. But
literally, but you know what I love? Like at the end of each crazy scene, it seemed like they both knew how to come together and just like be, you know, the way they decided to relax and unwind and find places to do that was like, no matter what differences they had and no matter what frustrating moments David had with Benji and Benji had with David, they ended up together and they were just like, let's breathe and exhale and let's try again tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy because like you can have these crazy journeys and you can, again, reflecting back on your own self, is like you can go on a trip and have all these crazy things that happen, or it has nothing to happen, and like at the end of the day he's probably going to go back, you know, David's going to go back to his wife and his kid and they're going to ask him how the trip was, and probably the one thing that he's probably going to bring up among other things was the time that they overslept on the train and they had to go back and do this crazy thing, because that was the moment that stood out the most. It's not going to be the moment. He's not going to talk about the moment where he lashed out the tour guide, or it might be, it depends on if he wants to mention it, him smoking weed on the roofs and like breaking into other buildings. Like he could, like, I feel like you have those moments where you tell people like, oh yeah, this was the crazy thing that happened on my trip. And then you have these personal moments where like, that's not really meant to be shared. It's more of a connection you had with you and the person that you're with. And then you have the moments where it's probably was stressful in the moment, but you're not going to think about that. Like, I'm sure all those stressful moments that he had is probably off to the wayside, because you remember what you want to remember when it comes to these trips. And like 5 years down the line, you're not even going to remember why you were even upset. You just think it was an overall great trip that you had with your cousin. And so I feel like that's an interesting thing that they could possibly, you know, as me reflecting on the film, like just those experiences that he had. Like he was upset in the moment, but at the end of the day, they're all laughing, having a good time, back in first class, enjoying the irony of it. And then like even Benji, like when they get back to this exit, they're like, "Hey, sorry guys, we took like how long were they waiting?"
And they're sitting on their luggage, like, "Come on, guys." Like, sorry, David was sleeping. He took a great nap. Like,
Marsha was passed out on the floor.
Y'all were on the total opposite end of where you were supposed to be, and these people are like impatiently waiting for you, and they're like, "Hey, we got your luggage."
Yeah,
thanks.
And honestly, I'm surprised they even waited. I thought they had to go to like the hotel and everything. It's like, good for them for being better people than me. I was like, oh, they slept. No, well, let's move on. We'll reach out to them later. You know,
they'll figure it out.
They'll find their way back. We have a tour to do. You know, and then shortly after that, you know, we had to me, one of the moments of the film that I really reflected on was kind of like they were at the restaurant. and they were having the dinner scene, and they were all talking about some of the things that they were experiencing on the tour. I think this was even shortly after the Stone. I think that was after the Stone scene.
It was, yeah.
And like they were even commenting on the fact that they're trying to have this nice conversation, but like the music is too loud, and it's like they like one of those like things where like that's where you're focusing on at that moment. It's like you're not trying to enjoy the environment, you're just complaining that there's loud music happening. And then there was more outbursts and like, you know, just not being comfortable where you are. And you can tell that Benji in a sense was not really comfortable in this particular environment, and then he kind of storms out. And then we have Jesse, who tells this heartbreaking story within it of like, you know, how he wants to be there for Benji, but yet how can someone have the, you know, even fathom trying to commit suicide? Like you like you don't understand how you have a family that's surrounding you, that loves you, and you have the people that always want to be around you, yet you want to take your own life. And that was such a hard thing for David to understand. But at the same time, you really don't know where Benji's mind is to even want to go there, and him feeling so lonely to even want to attempt that. To me, it was just a really strong scene of reflecting of not only the situation that they're in, the uncomfortableness of that environment, the dinner scene, but as well as how even David sees Benji. I think we really got to see a true reflection in how he sees his cousin.
Yeah, that hit home for so many reasons, but really the biggest one was feeling that you feel helpless. You know, David felt like there was nothing he could do, and he kept apologizing to the group saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even be sharing this. Like, I've shared too much, or I'm talking too much. But he needed to get that off his chest with someone. And to him, these were complete strangers. So it was almost like a group therapy session to him. That's how I saw it. He took it as an opportunity to talk to these people he'll probably never see again. And, you know, just get it off his chest that, like, I want to be there for my cousin, but how in the world would you take the half bottle of pills and try to end your life and stop this pain that even basically David saying, I'm feeling this pain too. But like you said, you don't know where Benji's head is at. And it also, I think, highlighted the fact someone who can be so free-spirited as Benji and just happy and seemingly in tune with his emotions, be not in tune with his emotions and also feel so much hurt and heaviness to want to do something that he thought could take that pain away. And that is the struggle many people every day face. And I'm sure that's going to be relatable on multiple levels to a lot of people who just go every day carrying whatever they may be carrying, trying to smile it through and carry it through. But then at home, when they're by themselves, it's a whole nother ball game. And that scene kind of explained that from both perspectives, from like a caregiver and a family member to also the person who is suffering in silence.
I kind of was hoping in that scene, and now hearing, like, after talking it out, I think I prefer the way it played out. I almost was anticipating Benji to walk up and then there be this confrontation.
Yeah.
But I almost
was expecting.
But I almost like it better this way because it gives him the place to air that out, and then we don't even have to, like, we don't need to explore that. We don't need to explore the lash out between them. But I think it works better in what you explained, Christina, is using it as like a group therapy, because immediately after that, after he's like, you could almost see like the relief on his face to like get it out. We cut to Benji, who's like sitting alone at the piano, kind of like, maybe not wallowing, but like kind of like dealing with his pain and in the way that he's comfortable knowing how, whether it's lashing out or secluding himself from everyone.
And then I think it made David mad because then again, here Benji is after having a moment, an episode, so to say. He storms off, David pours his heart out, and then Benji's playing this beautiful score on the piano. Yeah. Speaking of the scores throughout this movie, stole my heart. Stole my heart. I love classical music. Like this is why I say Ernesto knew what he was doing. My sister was a classical pianist, and so every song was Chopin. I'm like,
why?
I went on a tangent with that, but yes. And then so Benji's on the piano, and then David is like, this son of a gun, here he is again, like winning people over after pissing them off.
And also doing the thing that they were complaining about just a few minutes ago. It's like, oh, this music is so loud, like I can't even enjoy my dinner. And then Benji's playing. It's like, this music is beautiful. Who knew that he could play the piano? And it's just like those mixed emotions. But I wrote this down because I feel like with David kind of venting in a way to the group, this was the moment where I felt like, oh my God, like that is 100. Like, to me, this is the moment where I felt like not necessarily seen, but like I understood every word that you said here. And he said that he's like, I guess we're just reflecting on like I think Mark with the husband who doesn't understand anything, I guess, in this movie, was like, he's like, well, what about you? You seem fine. The fact that your grandmother passed away. And he's like, I'm not okay. This is the line that he said in the movie. He's like, I'm not okay. I take a pill for my OCD. I jog. I medicate. I go to work in the morning. I come home at the end of the day, and I move forward because I know that my pain is unexceptional, and I don't feel the need to burden everyone with it. I was like,
period.
That's the human experience.
I was like, wow, that hit. That whole line just hits you, because that's what everybody does. That's the way. That's the real pain right there. That's to me, that line just capsulized what this movie is, because we all experience that. We all experience pain in our own different ways, and the fact that we take some pills, we jog, we medicate, we go to work, we go home, we deal with it, we have a moment to ourselves, we reflect, we calm down, we go to sleep, we wake up the next day, and we do it all over again. Some days are better than others, but that's just what it is, you know? And like, even Benji saying that, David saying all that, and then again, not understanding why Benji just doesn't do that. You can see that it kind of bothers him in a way. Like, just do what everyone else does. And obviously Benji cannot do what everyone else does. Like, that's not the way that he operates. But I just found that was just such a powerful line that, like, at the end of the day, like, everyone was just like silent. Like, they really had nothing to say in that moment. What do you say shortly after that, except for like, well, thank you for sharing, that with us.
Sometimes you just sit there and just, when he said that, and I'm glad you recited that verbatim, because literally watching that, I said to myself, because that is like, when my sister passed, we didn't know how to navigate grief. We're like, what do we do? What do you mean? And through the last 5 years, my dad has consistently said, you just keep going. Life does not stop just because it stopped on this side for someone else. And David literally said that, essentially, for lack of a better words, like, I do these things, I do my best. And if today wasn't a good day, you wake up tomorrow, if you're fortunate enough, and you try again the next day. And it's like, he was just saying the goal is to just try and be better and not harp on your pain. But also, to Benji's point, he wants you to feel the pain so you can understand what it is you're feeling. And so it was like, I understood both. And it's like, you take a little bit of Benji, you feel your pain, and then you take a little bit of David, and it's like, okay, how do you move on from that pain?
Right.
That's a good point.
And then that being reflective on the bigger pain is that the whole Holocaust tour they're in, and we have these moments where, like, I don't know if the tour guide took what Benji said in the grave scene when he took it to the Holocaust, or that was just part of his normal thing. But he made a point to say that during this part of the tour, I won't be as factual, or I won't be saying much, because I want you just to sink in where you are. And like, it could have gone either way. He could have taken what Benji said and just let the moment breathe, or this could be his normal part of the tour because of the location of where you are. And all he really said was like, and this was this, and this was this room, and then he just let it stay quiet. And so I want to think that it maybe was that moment where he listened to Benji and he put it toward his tour. But yeah, it's just like you have that, again, that big pain of like, you are on this tour to experience said pain, as well as see what they saw, experience, just being in those same locations as what they kind of visualize what that could have been like to feel that pain, in addition to feeling your own personal pain on top of that, and how we express that is, throughout the whole movie.
I will say you brought up the concentration camp scene. I thought was handled with such care. There wasn't like a lot of like scene work within the camp itself. And this in the interview I was watching, they were talking about it. That to them that was the one day they felt like they weren't on set. Like, because there wasn't that scene work. They kind of just like Jesse. He said, I wanted to treat this with as much respect as I could, so we kind of just set up the cameras, and then they kind of just move throughout the scene, and we get those moments where he says, this is that, where there's not a lot of back and forth. Where I feel like us as the viewers, like we're obviously separated by the screen, but he brought us. I felt like we were there, like we were like experiencing the moment with them, because we were very in and out, like a lot of stationary camera work, like it just shot by shot, just not kind of moving within the scene at all, which I love. And also you brought up the score, and I think the cinematography was equally as beautiful. Just the things they showed in Poland and just how they showcased it. And for me is how I felt the concentration camp scene was just handled with such care and respect that I thought it was beautifully done, well constructed, and I think it just like encapsulated like what the film was really about. Like we've seen all this other pain. Let's experience like this unavoidable pain that these people went through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, honestly, beautifully done, and I understand why it got the rave reviews it did. The casting all around, it just felt so real.
Yeah.
It felt real. It felt genuine. It felt authentic. The writing was phenomenal. And again, to your point with just the score, I watch movies with subtitles now. I'm at that age. Yeah. And
no, don't be afraid. I have the same
Welcome.
Thing. Don't be afraid of that. That's when you understand the dialogue. That's when, yeah. Fantastic.
And so I'm looking at all the song titles and whatnot, and like that was so captivating and just blending the beauty, the emotion, the sensitivity of it all. I mean, from beginning to end, even the closing shot with Benji at the airport, essentially where he started. It was a full circle moment.
So I have a question for each of you. When it comes to the ending, do you see it as kind of like disparaging for him or hopeful? Well, Christina, I'll start with you.
I see it as, I wouldn't even say disparaging or hopeful, honestly, because I did not see hope. I will say that. I did not see hope in a sense that while he got to reconnect with his cousin, when you're dealing with someone who may or may not be struggling, they have to be willing to go the next step and try to get out of whatever it is they may be dealing with. And I just did not get the vibe that Benji was ready to do that yet.
Yep.
Though I do think it was hopeful in a sense. David seemed a little bit more open and understanding that his cousin needs him in this way. So let me try to be more present for him and understand that the way he responds may not be the way he expects him to, but he can try to reach out a little bit more and just try, because Benji expressed multiple times, like, you've changed. We used to do this. We used to do that. He kept like almost trying to guilt trip him for the way he used to be before he got married and had a family, instead of just embracing the fact people evolve and their lives change, but that doesn't change who they are at the core. So I think if this were a series, we would have definitely been able to dive into his life, his everyday life at home by himself, and how that relationship continues outside of their trip. But I think I wouldn't say disparaging, but I also wouldn't say hopeful. I think it's kind of right in the middle.
Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say the whole part is exactly what you said. Is like, I feel like that maybe within this journey, David was able to reconnect with Benji, and maybe moving forward, we would hope that David would continue to reach out for Benji. There was even a lot of moments in the movie where it's like, oh, we don't talk anymore. We like, obviously they're here together, but they don't talk as much or hang out as much as before. And David is like, well, you can always come to New York and visit me. And Benji's like, well, you can, it's the same distance to where I am. So like you can come and see me. He's like, but then David's like, well, it only makes sense if you come to New York. It's like, in what way does that like make sense? Because there's more to do in New York to compare to where they are in the town where I guess is Benji living with his mother? Is that my
he lives with his mom.
So like, it's almost David was saying, it's like, oh, there's nothing to do over there, but there's plenty to do in New York. So you might as well come visit me. It's like both were kind of not willing to take the extra step to kind of to reconnect. It's like they were both making excuses for themselves of not wanting to just take the drive or the flight over to just spend a weekend or whatever. So I feel like after this journey, maybe they will take that time. Maybe David will probably be the bigger person and take that journey over to go visit him, because it was probably easy for him, even though he probably doesn't want to. And maybe he wants to encourage Benji to say, hey, come see the family and come over to New York. And then we can do a whole bunch of other things that happen, what you do whenever you go to New York. And so that part I do feel hopeful about. But yeah, again, to Christina's point, we get back into the same point. It's a full circle moment in this movie where Benji decides to sit at the airport alone, kind of watching the world go by. And you don't really know where his head's at, like throughout the whole movie. Like he's kind of all over the place. He's feeling, adventurous and exciting and like funny and like approachable in one way, and then he just wants to be alone in another. And in this particular, at the end of the movie, he chooses to be alone with his thoughts, and we don't really know what those thoughts are. But he chose at that moment to not be with David and go hang out with his family. But instead be alone at the airport, and probably going to be there for a couple of hours until he decides to either grab a taxi or whatever to eventually go back home. So it's kind of, again, him experiencing the pain that he wants to experience.
I don't know. I guess I was more, I saw it as more hopeful because, like, yes, he did push him away, but like David took the first step and yes, to build that bridge. But Benji is a very introspective person. So regardless if he said no, he's going to think about that moment for God knows how long. Yeah. And he's going to, like, he may even obsess over it. So who's to say when he gets back into his normal routine and he realizes that he has this moment where he could have done something different, he's a very, like, wild person where he could say, well, I'm going to go visit you. Like, I'm coming tomorrow. Like, he could, like, we could shoot 5 minutes later.
If he gives that heads up, he might just pop up.
Like, he's like, where's your flight? He might just say, like,
I'm outside.
Like, here, for the miniseries, episode 2, he just gets in the plane. It starts with him getting in the plane and sitting next to him, and that's what starts it. And that's what starts the next one.
There you go.
Well, it's so funny because, like, we were talking about what's next. Is like, what's next is that you just a real pain the series, a realer pain, so to speak. And so, like, or the pain gets real. I don't know. They can work out the title later, but like this can continue easily into a series that literally picks up with him back at the airport. And like, where do you go from here after you experience this journey? One thing I do want to talk about, which I feel like we haven't talked about much, is like the passing of their grandmother and the reason why they're on this trip, and the relationship and the way that they express the grieving process within their grandmother. We see a lot of David reflecting on, like, oh yeah, our grandmother was a great person, and then Benji would instantly interject. It's like, she was the best. She was just great. She was amazing. And like you can tell that they had, like, Benji and his grandmother had such this deep relationship. And was like, Benji was like, yeah, we talk every Thursday. Like, you don't talk to grandma every Thursday? Like, what's wrong with you? She's like amazing. She's like the best person ever. Why wouldn't you want to talk to her every Thursday? It's like he didn't understand why he wasn't as invested into, like, oh, you have this family, but you can't reach out to our grandmother. It's like you can tell, like, Benji was so deeply like connected to his grandmother that this is what we're getting. He can't fathom the fact that she is no longer here. And you can see him processing that. And I found that they had a really sweet moment when we finally get to the
house.
To the house, yes. And they get there and they're like, I expected to be a lot bigger. Like it was the basis of the whole trip. And in some cases, you think of it, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And like their whole reason of doing this whole thing is like they took a day off the tour so they can they left the tour early so they can go see the house, and there's like, oh, it's much smaller. There's like, how did you do all this in this tiny apartment? It's like, do we leave a stone? It's like, yeah, we should. Oh, you got 2 stones? Okay, they put it over. And then we have the neighbor over here, which is then a funny moment in the movie where the neighbor's like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, what's going on here? And then he's like, oh, so it's like, he's like, she's not buried. He's like, yeah, I know, but it's more of a symbol thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, I get it. And then the guy's like, hey, do you mind removing the stones? We have an older woman staying here. She might trip. And he's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And it was like this whole moment that was building up throughout the entire movie of them seeing the house where their grandmother grew up. And it just turned into like, that's not what this movie was about. It wasn't about seeing the house. It was a journey that we went through to get here and the experience that we had within that journey to then when we reflect upon it. I just thought it was a funny scene within all of the sadness that was expressed throughout the rest of it.
It was a great scene. It was hilarious.
I was expecting more too. I think that was the point of it, right?
Yes.
The build up. But I love that comparison because oftentimes we anticipate the ending of something in life. We're working toward a certain goal and we forget to enjoy the moments leading up to that goal. And I feel like even for Benji, they looked at the house, they're like, huh. But they were still able to have a warming moment and put the rocks down, even if it were just for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They got to do that. They got to meet people, tell why they were there. And then after that, all right, life moves on. Let's carry on. But it goes back to that whole grief process, right? You have your moment and you keep going. They saw what they needed to see. They felt what they needed to felt for a split second. And then you go back to regular life.
Yeah. And even like we see these, like, going back to the end of the movie where like they're appreciative that they had this moment together, like all these moments that they have, even reflecting on like these crazy journeys that they had of even like breaking into these hotel buildings to be like, you think that building's high enough so we can go smoke a joint? Yeah, okay, let's go with that one. Like, it was almost like toward the beginning of the movie that David was so apprehensive about just doing it in the first place that by the end of it, like by the time, like they were literally searching for random buildings in a place they were not familiar with just to break in, to go to the roof so they can enjoy the view because of the experience they had early in the movie where David was very apprehensive about. It's like, oh, we should not be doing this. And Benji's like, no, this is fine. And so like, these are the moments that like, you can see like even his character grew just a little bit, just kind of leaning into the fun of it all. Like it's, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Like some trying to find the levity in some of these moments. And there, I feel like in this certain cases, there's a time and place for that. And I think even with Benji's character, maybe he didn't necessarily know when that time and place was. Obviously, when you're looking at the memorial or the monument, and he's like, let's go stand in front of it. Let's go like pose with these people. Like, that's not the thing you do. But for Benji at that moment, that was the thing that you do. Like, maybe it wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, but it's not necessarily the wrong thing to do either. It was just unconventional.
Right.
And so, like, I feel like, again, they were playing a lot with what the social norms are, how we should feel in these moments. When is it a good time to feel like a little bit of happiness in the midst of the sadness? And it might not be in the same point for everyone, but again, they just explored a lot of these themes throughout this movie that you can easily resonate with. And it was told in a beautiful way that I don't think I was expecting. Like, I knew this was a movie that people were talking about, but I didn't think I was going to come out of it feeling the way that I did.
Yeah, I agree. I knew I was going to love it, but I was like, I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did. Like, halfway through the movie, I go, damn. Like, this is way better. This is way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it was everything. And I hope people give it a chance, multiple chances. This is one of those movies you can watch several times and pick different things out of it and be able to see it differently. And, almost like watching each character react, right?
Yeah.
Because their faces, their responses, even the wife was like, he really needs help. And like, toward the end of the movie, it's like, yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does.
And David expresses that. David's like, I could see he was down. Our grandmother left us this money to come see her history and where she's from. And I felt like this was a perfect time, like a little pick-me-up trip almost. Let's go do this, and hopefully he can be in a better place. So it was relatable on so many levels. And for me, like really the biggest key point that I was talking to my husband about, I said, for me, it was like just listening. And I keep saying that, but just listen to what someone is saying without judging, without having any sort of, side eye, even though naturally human, if someone has an outburst on you, you're going to give them a side eye. But you can't control what someone says or what they do, but you can control how you respond. And the way this movie articulated that, I think, was beautiful. And I hope in the society we're in, it's something we all can learn, because people react differently. They grieve differently. They have different emotions. You don't know when someone's going to be up or down. But we also don't really know Benji's everyday struggle. Right. So we never got to see his home life. We never got to see what he was like before or after this trip. We got a glimpse of it with David when he went home. And even before he got there, his wife made him trail mix. Like, and Benji's got this warm yogurt in his pocket. So that's right. It's a tale of two different worlds. Yeah. And he's grateful for his warm yogurt.
Yeah, he really is. He's like, don't worry, I got yogurt in my pocket. It's fine.
Yeah. He's like, no, I ate. You want some? Here you go. Like, it opened my heart even more to just remember everybody's going through something. And, you can feel how you want to feel. But, like, if someone wants to have a moment, let them have their moment. Have your little moment. And like, you good? All right, cool.
Let's move on.
Take it from there. Yeah.
A complete side note for this has nothing to do with the movie itself. Just more like my own personal thing when I was watching this movie. I was like, all right, so you guys are going across country to do this tour. You guys are gone for roughly about, it looks like the tour is about 4 or 5 days. Maybe you stayed for a week or whatever. I was like, you guys just brought a backpack? Like,
literally,
pack a light.
Where's this bag in really light? It didn't look like these bags were heavy. I think Benji packed more than David did, but David, all he had was a backpack and a duffel, and I was like,
yeah,
you need a little bit more than that on this trip. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's like, I mean, it wouldn't be of a stretch to bring a suitcase, but like. That duffel looked pretty light. Like he was carrying it around like it was nothing. It wasn't stuffed or anything. He was there
for a purpose and a mission. He's like, I'm not here for a fashion show. Yeah. I just give me this T-shirt, this sweater, these pants.
We're good.
We're good. We'll rotate.
We're good. Like
maybe I'll buy a shirt while I'm there
for 2 days. Maybe I'll buy a keychain or something. I don't know. He's like, I don't have that much room in this luggage, so it has to be that. I was like, I can wear this hoodie the whole time. I don't got to pack extra shoes. These shoes are fine. These pants, maybe 2 days worth or so. This shirt, maybe I'll switch out the shirt halfway through. I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there.
Wear inside out. Put the sweater on top.
But now when I rewatch it again, I want to see how often they change clothes.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Do they only change like twice?
I don't know.
I wasn't paying attention to that, but now I'm going to go back and when we watch it again, I'm going to look.
Yeah. Like, forget about the themes of the movie. I really want to know if they change. How many times they change clothes?
How many wardrobe changes?
Yeah.
Because very quick trips like that, you change multiple times a day. Let's be honest. Like, you come back, you shower, you change again. Like, you shower before dinner, and
Yeah. Very quickly, I want to talk about the box office, which we typically do with all the movies we review. This movie had a budget of $3 million, which is very inexpensive, and you can see like it fell in a way that was very independent, but also was from Searchlight Pictures, so that was a very big budget studio. As of the time of this recording, it has made $8.1 million domestically, $6.2 internationally, with a grand total of $14.3 million worldwide. A pretty good return, I would say. Definitely almost almost 5 times the budget on this, so definitely making a good return. And we've always talked about like box office, like 14 million might not be much for most movies that are made, but when your budget's 3 million and you come back out with 14.3, that's a pretty good investment if you ask me.
I would say so.
And especially now, it's probably even getting more than just what the box office numbers are, given all the awards attention that it's been getting throughout the award season. The big thing that it's been getting was like a lot of award shows, a lot of like, what do you call them? award shows, whatever, organizations, they are giving, the movie high praise, is giving it Best Picture noms. But the other thing that I've been seeing a lot of is best, I think it's original screenplay. I'm not sure if it's adapted.
No, it's original.
It's original,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is original because he wrote it.
I would think it would be original, yeah. I just want to double check. I'm not sure if I'm going to get that answer. It just says best original screenplay. There we go. Yeah, so definitely getting noms for Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and of course, in a weird category that I don't necessarily agree with, but it's Karen Culkin for Best Supporting Actor is the one that's been getting all of the attention. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve the awards. I'm just questioning the supporting.
Is he supporting?
Of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels like he is very much the lead as Jesse Eisenberg is the lead in this movie.
I would even.
How would that work in cases like that, though, when like the main characters are really two people? Like,
right.
Is there a situation where, yes, they both almost have equal roles, but one is technically a supporting role?
Right. I guess there is a gray line there. A lot of people refer to screen time. I know on an unrelated note that we'll probably get into when we start talking about our Oscars talk, but like Zoe Saldana and Amelia Perez is being looked at as a supporting actress for all these awards nominations. But I think people have pointed out that she has, if not very close to the amount of screen time that our main actress has. And so, like, and our main actor, I forgot her name, but the main actress, our main actress is
Sophia Garcon. I have to look it up, but it's
Yes, she has about just about this almost the same amount of screen time than Zoe Saldana does. And so, like, but Zoe Saldana's be the one looked at for supporting. And I think it also comes down to the politics of it all, because maybe they have a better shot at supporting. So, and there's like this gray area, and that's a whole different conversation. But either way, Karen Culkin is being recognized for his performance, and I can 100% see that within it. Jesse Eisenberg is being recognized as just overall Best Picture, in addition to his writing, which his writing was beautiful in this film as well. So I do think that, like, literally we are hours away at the time of this recording before the Oscar nominations, and so I'm really hoping that A Real Pain gets its due for this, because at the beginning when the nominations were first coming out, A Real Pain wasn't being looked at for Best Picture. And now, as we get the Screen Actors Guild, the Writers Guild, the Producers Guild, the Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, all these award shows are giving their nominations, and we're seeing A Real Pain starting to climb up the ranks of like, oh, this might be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, and I really hope it does, because it's a very like meaningful, thoughtful, like realistic film that I think a lot of people can resonate with. And I think like a lot of people gravitate toward the Oscar nominations, and I feel like if this one's up there for Best Picture, then a lot more eyes can be on it than what's already being looked at right now.
I can't think of a movie like this in recent time. Obviously you guys would know better than I would, but off rip, I personally can't think of anything that's similar. Give it all the awards. Seriously, all the awards. It was remarkable.
So, well, I guess we'll start going around. Christina, what are your final thoughts? And we have a 5-star rating, and you can give a half star. I have a feeling I know your answer though.
I think it deserves that. But I mean, all jokes aside, from the writing to the score to the cinematography to the acting to the fact that, you know, both characters played into these roles so beautifully, and then even learning today, some of their roles were based off of real storylines. I mean, everything was beautifully incorporated. I think it can hit every demographic in its own way if people take the time to watch it, which I hope they do, because there's a beautiful lesson, multiple lessons throughout the movie. And if a movie, to me, with that goal isn't doing that, and if you're not leaving feeling like, let me look within myself, let me see how I see life in different perspectives, like, I walked away with so many nuggets and so many lessons, and for that, beautiful 5 stars. And I'm super, super excited to see what Jesse Eisenberg does in the future. For this to only be his second time, like, writing and directing, like, the future for him is so bright, and being able to still get in front of the camera and deliver his character so beautifully. I mean, it was awesome.
Okay. I was because usually you ask, so I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go next. So, I mean, 5 stars all around. As I always talk about, this is a movie that really fits the whole meal, like for Best Picture.
Yes.
Like for me, like as good as his writing was, like the directing, the care he took in certain scenes, just the choices that he made in certain scenes, it just elevated the experience of like experiencing this narrative. Like to me, like Kieran Culkin, like, he encompassed this character, and it's funny because I'm just so fascinated by him. Ever since I watched him in Succession, like I just really grown to appreciate him as an actor, and he, like, from everything I've seen, he's one that he does like very little scene work. He doesn't read his lines. He like reads his lines like the day of. He doesn't really take notes. He just kind of like goes in, like does his thing, and it's just kind of very reminiscent of his Benji character. Just kind of like goes in and lets the moment breathe, and like you can just see the care he puts into his work. And I'm excited. Like anything he's gonna do next, like I'm game for. So for me, 5 stars. I hope it gets nominated for Best Picture. Kieran Culkin gets nominated for Best Supporting. I'd like to see the score up there. I'd also like to see cinematography and editing up there as well. Because I thought it was just so well crafted. Everything was just so well done.
Yeah, I'll add writing to your list as well.
It was. You knew what I meant. It was there.
Yeah, it was there. But yeah, no, I just kind of share the same sentiment, and what we've been talking about since we started reporting. This movie is 5 out of 5 stars. I've always said, like, when a movie can you have, everyone has their own expectations going into a film, but when it can shift your expectations in a positive way, and like you come out of it, even though it was a brief, a breezy 90 minutes, you come out of it just keep thinking about, like, there's certain movies that by the end you can reflect on the movie as a whole, but it's rare where I can reflect on individual scenes throughout this film. It's like you can almost think of it as chapters as they go visit each, from the moment that they are talking, going around the room in the hotel lobby, from the moment from the train to the moment that they had with the monuments, the gravesite, to when they're visiting their homes or their grandmother's home, to visiting the Holocaust site, the concentration camp, even on the roofs tops of all those buildings. Each one of those moments felt like something different I can take away from the interactions they have with one another in the situation. And so it's rare that a movie can do that scene by scene. And then, like, as we were talking, we were talking about these movies as individual shorts, so to speak. Like each one of these could have had its own little short moment, and like it wasn't like we were trying to conjure up something within the whole movie of itself. Like, what does the whole movie mean? And it's like, the whole movie was kind of built on these little moments, and there's not a lot of movies can do that. And I feel like he did an amazing job getting us there and kind of reflecting on these moments that we have, focusing on the journey, less about the destination, and also make us laugh along the way as well. Like it was like I said, it was a good movie to watch, a movie I can easily go back and rewatch again. It's definitely one of those movies where a line that I feel like I've been using lately is like, movie makes life make sense. And this is one of those situations where, like, I can watch a movie and this makes me understand things that I wasn't necessarily thinking about, and maybe I can take some of these lessons and approach it to my everyday life and how I, treat my own pain, so to speak.
I love that.
Yeah,
What's great about that is that tells you that this movie will almost be timeless. Like, we could watch this movie in 10 years and it will hit the exact same. Where some movies, like, you watch it and 5 years later you're like, I can't even watch this anymore. Like, I can't even look at this. Where I could easily go back and watch this 10 years later and still enjoy all the themes that they were portraying in this film.
Absolutely.
And depending on your circumstance, 10 years from now, this might hit differently than it is.
Yeah, true.
So you never know.
That's a good point.
But that makes it timeless.
Yeah. Yeah, they're, just the same way like a Christmas movie can be timeless for its own reason. Like, everyone goes back and watch your favorite Christmas movies because you want to feel a certain way when you're watching these Christmas movies, as well as your favorite movies. Like, you want to go back and you want to maybe relive that emotion that you had when you first watched that movie. But I feel like with this movie, like you said, 10 years down the line, you can rewatch it and you can have a different understanding just based off the events that happen in your own life, because like you'd understand that pain before 10 years ago. But then 10 years later, you could be experiencing a different pain that this movie can help, maybe help you understand a little bit better, or at least maybe understand somebody else's pain in these certain situations. It's truly a beautiful film. And it's available to watch on Hulu. So if you have a Hulu subscription or a Disney Plus combined, it's right there available for streaming at home. So I think we can all say we highly recommend giving this movie a shot, even though we spoiled the entire movie. But doesn't matter. You knew you signed up for it.
Spoiler alert in this before anyone watches it. So.
Exactly. So like you knew you got yourself.
Also, sidebar, it's also a testament that movies don't need to be 2.5 to 3 hours for them to be these enjoyable Oscar contending films. Like you could make a really, and that is just, I think that points out just how strong his writing is that he was able to give us this great movie in just an hour and a half.
Yeah. Like it's what you can do with the time rather than trying to, like I feel like there was no time in this movie where it felt unnecessary or wasted. Where like there's like some movies you can watch and it's like 2 hours and you're just like, we could probably take this out of the movie, or
3.5 with an intermission.
You know how many movies I don't watch because they're like long?
I don't blame you.
My husband and I will go and like we'll want to watch a movie and it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we're like, how long is that? 2:20? Let's try again tomorrow. Like, I'm gonna be up for this.
That's a little close to bedtime there.
Yeah.
Do we have something else?
Carve out 2 hours?
Damn, that's a commitment.
Like, it's like by the time you want to get up, pause it, get a snack, use the bathroom, we're already at 3 hours. So I know we commit to that right now. Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg was like, I got you people who are busy. I'll give you a 90-minute movie. You maybe have to pause it once. You can be in and out and enjoy your dinner shortly after. I got you. I got you.
But you know what? With Hulu, some people, like, you watch it and you have commercials, so it still even works because you can get up and go to the bathroom during the movie. So
True.
It was phenomenal.
But there you have it. That's our spoiler review on A Real Pain. Hopefully it gets the awards nomination that we feel like it deserves. But now we're going to be tossing it over to you, Christina. It's been a while since we've had you on the show, and I believe, Ernesto, you wrote down the details here. Episode 153. When this was at the end of 2022, I believe.
Oh
December.
My God!
It was our last show of the year, December of 2022.
Last show of the year. And we reviewed Avatar: The Way of Water. Yes, this was a completely different film from that, obviously.
Yeah, and it was 3 hours.
Speaking of which, but yeah, now, and I feel like he's been so busy. I think we even joked about, and if we can bring this back, that'd be great. Like we close out the year with Christina. We just every year. I thought that was a great way to close out the year. And I've been bugging Ernesto too. It's like, hey, is Christina available? It's like she coming back on? Like, oh, she's busy. Like, oh no, I get it. Like a year later. So about Christina, she coming back? Like, have you reached out to her?
Like, Matt,
what's going
on? She
is
planning a wedding. Leave her alone.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but she said like 90 minutes said it was good, right? We can do like a 90-minute thing, right? Anything over 2 hours, that's it. We learned that today.
That's the commitment.
We got a little bit.
Always make time for you guys.
Wow.
Always.
Well,
If I will carve out 2 hours if I know, but if we're just scrolling for a movie and we see 2 hours,
no.
we need a bit more of a heads up.
30 minutes to find the movie, 3 hours to watch the movie. It's already a half a day commitment. We can't do this. We can't do this.
Water cup, get it? Like, no. That's hilarious. But yeah, life has been, since the end of 2022, I've gotten married. We got married. Thank you. We got married in Destin in April of 2024. So it's almost been a year, which is crazy. And wedding planning actually like postponed me doing what I just recently did, which is write a children's book. And that's what you all are seeing now. One of the illustrations from my book. It's called Tiffany's Growing Garden. This was something that came to me, I'd want to say, January of 2022. So my husband and I were sitting in the kitchen. It was New Year's Day. We always talk about like our goals, things we want to accomplish. We reflect, all the cliche stuff we do. But, you know, it works for us. Manifestation is our thing, and speaking things into existence, like your words have power. And at that point, it had been 2 years since my sister passed. A little bit longer than that. She passed December in 2019. And I always knew I wanted to honor her somehow. She lived with bipolar and schizophrenia, acute psychosis, and she passed away from a sudden medical illness. She had a blood clot to her lung at 31 years old. And so it was sudden, tragic, devastating, all the things for us. And throughout her death, my parents and I said, we need to figure out a way to spread awareness on mental health, because she struggled with her mental health for more than a decade. One of the most brilliant people you will ever meet. I mentioned a classical pianist. She started playing Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Chopin at 5 years old through her teenage years without sheet music. Just one of the most brilliant souls I will ever meet. And so grief for me was and is a daily journey, but in those early stages, I was like, I gotta do something. So the book came to my head, but then I got proposed to. Well, first, that was first of all, rewind. That was January of 2022. We moved back to Orlando in March, and then it was just crazy. I got proposed to in November, and then from that point, it was just like wedding planning galore. But I had started the process of writing the book, and I battled between like, I want her to be in a swamp, like an ode to the Gators, because she loved UF. She went to UF, and she was like diehard Gator. That's the orange and blue overall. That's a little subtle shout out to that. And it was a back and forth battle. So, and I talked to management about it in maybe May of 2023, but then everything kind of took a backseat. So after the wedding in April, I said, okay, Christina, you just got to do this. And like, I let my own nerves and hesitation get in the way. But then I'm sitting in urgent care. Fast forward to the beginning of August in 2024. I'm sitting in urgent care and I'm going through my notes. Everybody was sick, so the wait was astronomical. And I'm going through my notes and I'm reading this book that I have. And I said, Christina, this is good. Like, just go forward with it. What are you scared of? Just do it. And I started Googling publishing companies, and I Googled published book quickly because I just wanted to get it done. Like, I was just
a very eloquent way of Google searching.
Yeah, done. I just want this off my notes. I want to get it out. I want to get over my fears. Like, it's just time to do it. So I found the publishing company. We had a Zoom interview to see if they would be fit for me, if I would want them to be fit for me, and vice versa. And we instantly connected because the lead publisher takes his grandson to the parks every summer. They're based in the UK. And so we instantly connected off of the fact that they come to Orlando all the time and go to all the parks. Anyway, they loved the story. They found the perfect illustrator, and they brought Tiffany to life in a way that just exceeded any expectation I had. I reached out to a couple of digital artists early on, and I was like, oh no, baby, this is not it. And and I took an actual picture of my sister, one of the last pictures she took 4 days before she passed, and I had them turn that into her character. And there it is. That's one of the last pictures she took, and that brought Tiffany to life in another way. And it was always one of her dreams to be able to talk to people about mental health and to just normalize the conversation. And so through the children's book and the beautiful, vibrant illustrations, Tiffany's in her garden and she's learning happiness, kindness, frustration, anger, all the emotions. And she's learning she has to nurture her feelings like she nurtures her flowers. Her flowers go through storms and sunny days, and she has to be patient with them and know that even through the fear and heavy days, love through it all will carry you through no matter what. And all the money from the book goes to her scholarship. So it's just been a beautiful passion project that I'm really, really proud of. And I kept it under wraps for a while. Ernesto will tell you, I didn't really tell anybody at work. And when it was finally happening, I was just like, yeah, guys, I'm writing a children's book. They're like, what? You're writing a book? When? What do you mean? I'm like, what? Because I didn't want it to be a thing, but I really am just humbled by the response and the feedback I've gotten from therapists. I've had therapists look over it before I published it to make sure we were targeting the right emotions, and the feedback has been I'm just so happy. It's been really, really great so far.
I have to tell you, the book is beautiful. Go ahead, man.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say the book because I bought it. Hey, I got it right here.
There it is.
It's beautiful. This is like, and actually this page right here, this is where she's like carrying her emotions and with the rock. You can't.
Yeah.
This is by far, this is one of my favorites. I think it just encompasses it. Where other days it felt heavy, like a rock big and grand, but Tiffany knew it was okay to feel and understand. And I just think that sentiment is just so great for kids to know it's okay to feel bad. Like, it's okay to experience these feelings. And like, it's just so great that we're at a place in our society where like we can celebrate these things. 'Cause I remember being a kid, like I was a very emotional child, and like, I was always called like a crybaby or whatever the case may be, but it's like, it's nice to see that now we kind of embrace that in our society. We understand that it's not that everybody feels these feelings, and that we have to go through them in order for us to grow and move forward within our own gardens.
Yeah. Thank you, Ernesto.
It's I find it crazy just hearing your process, because I'm sure a lot of people thought, because you weren't like announcing that you were writing a children's book, that it was like, oh wow, Christina did this in like a weekend. Good for her. Like, this is great. But in actuality, it takes a lot of time, effort, and it's not as simple as having an idea and then just putting it to life. You have the idea, you said, about almost 3 years ago, and it sits there, and then like life kind of gets in the way of whatever happens, but that spark, that idea is still there, no matter anything else is going on, like, and you could have forgotten about it, but like there's like this itch that like you just know that this is something I have to do. And then eventually, when like the bigger things kind of get out of the way, and you're like you said, you're kind of reflecting on a few things, and you're like, all right, what else is there to do? And like, well, I still have this children's book I want to write that's been kind of simmering for a while. And then eventually you just come to the moment where it's like, we just have to do this. Like you just got to do it. And then now you're seeing this positive, warm response. I also read the book, and it's a beautiful story about feelings. Like, again, it's almost like we planned it this way, that the movie that we
I really did. I promise you.
I was finished reading this book, and I was like, oh my god, is this part 2 of the movie? Is like, this is a companion piece of the movie that we're reviewing. It's incredible. And I do want to talk about the writing. I mean, you wrote the whole book, correct?
Yep. Everything, literally on my cell phone.
That's crazy.
I started on my iPad in my notes, and then I was like, anytime I would get a second, I would go back and look at it and make some edits and try and find words that rhymed, and like, what rhymes with grand, what rhymes with boulder, what rhymes with thunderstorm, like, because kids like rhymes. And at least for me, all the songs and things that I know come from rhymes as a kid. Right. So I tried to do the things I know Tiffany and I loved growing up, that how she would teach it to kids. This is exactly what she would do.
Was it difficult to kind of, because like dealing with your emotions, it's a big thing. We just talked about it for an hour and a half in a movie. Like, it could be a complicated situation. Did you find it difficult to kind of simplify that in a way that children can understand? And because that's my question.
I think what I struggled with was trying to find a way to connect it to something. So there was one rough draft where I wrote in a mother character. And it's so funny because when I had my best friend's daughter read it for like a test read, the first question was, well, where's Tiffany's mommy? So I'm like, well, next book, got to have a mama in there. But one of my rough drafts had like a version of Tiffany going to school, and people like picking on her, or some days she wakes up feeling happy to go to school and other days she doesn't. And I'm like, I don't know if that's it. So I deleted that copy. And then another one, I would brainstorm with my husband all the time. Bless his heart for being such a trooper. He heard every thought, and I woke him up at all kinds of the morning when I got illustrations back. But then I would pick another angle where I was like, okay, what if she's in this swamp and the alligator is one emotion and the mosquito is another emotion? And like, I was trying to figure out how to balance the emotions. And then my dad in his like retirement era loves to garden. And I said, okay, gardens and plants. People are, a green thumb is all the wave right now. Kids love gardening. What can I do that's like a tribute, but also connecting these emotions? And I said, you have to nurture your flowers. They get rained on, they get dried out. Like, that is a human, essentially. And they always say, talk to your plants, treat them like this. Then it just like a light bulb just sort of clicked. So I started writing it that way. And the first page, a little town filled with chickens and hay, that's a little shout out to Oviedo. If you know Oviedo, we have chickens. And that's our hometown. So I tried to throw in little subtle pieces of recognition there, while also just making sure, like, okay, this could be this emotion, this could be that emotion. But really, my illustrator just brought it out by putting emotions on the flowers and like smiley faces, sad faces. She just took every part of the book and literally, like, she understood the assignment. She truly did. The
like, to your point, the illustration is quite kind of magical to look at. Like, you have this garden and filled with emotions, and it's such a hard contrast for when we get to the sadder parts of the book, whereas like everything is bright and colorful, and then there's like a storm coming, and it's like, it's so dark. And it's, to me, it plays really well, because like the rest of the pages are just all these bright colors and like, look at this magnificent garden. But then sometimes, and a line that I felt I really resonated with a lot, it says, the page where it says, Tiffany would nature them and love and care, knowing that sadness too had a place to share.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, damn.
Is this for kids?
I was like, yeah, this is for kids. Like, sadness has a place to share. It's like beautiful, that man. Too needs, and it's very reflected to even the movie of Inside Out and Inside Out 2, expressing those emotions. And even toward the end of the first Inside Out movie, having sadness mixed in with joy. That is, I feel like that's what this kind of is. Like, you need to, all your emotions are good in your places, but it's also okay to like to have them all. Like, you have to, they all require different needs, and to understand, to nurture those. Like, I thought this book did a really good job kind of going through your emotions and different types of emotions, but yet kind of recognizing that it's all together. It's very similar to the image that's behind this one right now. It's like just kind of hugging them all. It's like, we're all here together. We're all just trying to make it work,
Yeah, just love it. Love is the common denominator. And that's, if my parents, when they shared Tiffany's story for the first time in July of 2022, they shared it publicly at work with our station. And my dad was just so, like, his message was just love. And my mom would always say Tiffany thanked them no matter what for just loving her. They would say, thank you so much, mommy and daddy, for loving me. And so that's what I grew up with. And that's what carries me through every day, knowing at the end of the day, like, there is love, and you can give love to yourself and to others. And that's the message that I just really wanted to get across to kids, is like, you can have these feelings. Like you said, you can bundle them up and feel all the feels, do that. Yes. But remember, at the end of the day, love will carry you through. And, it's just been, when I ran it past one therapist, she was like, Christina, this is fantastic. I was like, for real? Oh my gosh, thank you. Because I was just writing, I was just typing, and I just, when I get in the groove of something, I have to just keep going. And that's sort of how the process of like, once I decided I was doing it, going from urgent care at the beginning of August and finding that company, that next week we were on FaceTime. By my birthday, August 30th, they were starting illustrations.
Oh.
And that's how I knew it was meant to be. I took that as my sister giving me a birthday gift. And then the illustrations and everything were done by November 30th.
Wow.
And I was able to release the book on December 20th, this past December, which was 5 years since my sister passed. So it was, for me, so therapeutic. And the ways I've evolved with my grief have gone from, you know, posting a picture at her gravesite to showing how I'm honoring her. And I hope that was a testament to people who've watched my grief over the years, realize you can get through it too. And I'm not saying that everybody has to honor their loved one in this way, because you don't have to. Grief looks different for everyone, similar to the movie. Everyone carries it differently. But for me, I knew this was something she would want to do. And she always wanted to talk about just raising awareness about something that unexpectedly took over all of our lives. And so I was like, I could do like a hard book and explain the dark manic days and like the episodes, and she wouldn't want that. And she was very private. But a kid's book where people see her name and see her character, yes, honey, she would love it. So it makes me proud to get the, you know, they always say when a loved one passes on, you feel them in a different way. And I have certainly felt Tiffany throughout this whole process.
That's incredible.
Can you recall because again, I think amongst the standout is the illustration in here.
Yeah.
As well as its message. What was the first image that you received that you were like, this is it? Because you had this in your head this entire time, you know, like all this is now, it's words. You were spent years kind of fine tuning what this wants to say. And now you have the words. Now you need to bring it out into the illustration of it. And you said you went through different designers and you were like, no, that's not it. That's not it. What was the image that you knew? Yeah, I'm not sure if we have it or not, but what was the image that you knew, like this is what's going to get me there? Like this is what my words are trying to say.
So we started with just designing Tiffany. We had to start with the character. So she gave me a sketch. Vanina, my illustrator, gave me a sketch. And the first sketch, she looked too grown. And I didn't send it to you, Ernesto, but she had this weird, awkward pose where she was sort of like looking back at it. And I was like, I don't like this. And like her neck was really skinny and her head was like oversized. And I wrote her back and I was like, I don't know if this is it. Can we soften up her face a little bit? And I showed it to my husband and to my parents and then a couple of my sorority sisters. And I was like, what do you guys think? They're like, no, we need to soften the face a little bit. So then we went back and I said, you know, we had a couple of back and forths. So the first image essentially was Tiffany. And when I knew this was her character, I was like, okay, this was perfect. But the very first full spread I got was the first page where she is in the little town and you see the little chickens and you see all the colorful flowers, and I squealed like a kid. There we go. That was the very first full image. After we got Tiffany down and I was cool with how she looked, we then went to this. And I was like, oh, it's perfect. It's bright. It's colorful. Like, what? The flowers have faces?
Who does that?
Right. Like, and I didn't have to tell her any of that. All she asked was, how do you want the garden to look? And so I found a few pictures on Pinterest. I said, I want, colors like this. I want it like that. And she nailed it. And so we went sketch by sketch, page by page, and they didn't move on to the next sketch until I approved the first one. But they made it clear we were on a deadline because the company's, big push is they can publish your book in 90 days. And
right.
That is exactly what they did. And
you Google search publish book quickly,
yeah,
and they had to deliver on that.
Deliver times 10, okay? They came through. So we went sketch by sketch, and then we started the colors. And same thing, I had to approve every color, and I didn't have to make too many changes besides like, oh, let's get the curls on her hair right, because Tiffany loved her curls, and I wanted to make sure she had the round glasses and some small hoop earrings. I mean, they just, or like parts where I said, can we lighten her face a little bit, or I can't really tell she's smiling there. So it was a lot of just trusting the process, and just also realizing I am investing in this. It's okay to speak up and let her know if there's something you're not too crazy about. And I battled with that for a while because, you know, I can't do these illustrations, so I don't want to be mean or be a diva. But also, this is the story. This is, you get one shot to publish this, so you can give constructive criticism in a kind way. And she took every piece of feedback and instantly applied it. So they were A1. And there might be another project soon, but we'll see. They created a little audio version. I voiced the audiobook, which was really cool. And I did a little animated trailer where I'm like, hi, my name's Tiffany. Welcome to my growing garden. And I don't sound like a child at all. Like, not even close. So these are like, I want to work on voiceovers and voice acting and all that stuff. Just to, you know, exercise your muscles.
Could you see yourself evolving Tiffany's character to do more things? Like, do you see more coming out of Tiffany's growing garden and exploring that in different ways?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if it's outside of a garden, it could be like Tiffany and friends. You know, how does she navigate friendships? Or Tiffany and her pets. You know, it's always going to be Tiffany and something together. So this first part is how she nurtures her garden. The next one could be how she navigates anxiety, or how she deals with onset depression, or even just living, you know, everyday things as a kid. I do know with this one, and I have no problem sharing, it is what it is, I would love to turn it into a coloring book.
Absolutely.
Because it is so bright. I think it would be easy for someone to just shade it in, color it in, and that's a form of therapy. Therapists will tell you they use coloring books all the time to help with anxiety and depression. So I think that would be great. And then who knows what else could come?
I mean, it's just I could see it. You know how you just see certain things and you're like, I could see like I can see the possibilities. Like they're endless. And I think the care that you obviously put into this book is incredible. Like it's amazing. Like this is gonna resonate with a lot of kids. Like you don't even know who you're gonna help moving forward just by you constructing this narrative together.
Thank you guys. Seriously, I'm so excited. This will not only help with her scholarship, but people are saying Tiffany's name, and they're seeing her because it looks just like her. That's what my parents kept saying. They're like, it looks just like Tiff. And I'm just so grateful to the team at Bear With Us Productions. I'm grateful to everyone who really understood what I wanted and the sensitivity of the project. And yeah, they do things quickly, but they did not rush. You know, they did so with like, they handled it so delicately, and just wanted to make sure they were targeting everything I wanted them to target. And I could not believe it when I first got it. I have a bunch of my friends who I've known from middle school who read it to their kids. They're like, I was sobbing the entire time, you know, because they've known my sister and me. And I'm like, hopefully your child doesn't think you're going through it. They're crying reading the book because they knew Tiffany. But it's been a blessing. It really has.
I have two questions for you before we wrap this up. One, I obviously you are a journalist. So did you approach writing this book any differently than you would, say, writing a story, like for news?
Yes. And I'd say I approached it differently because when I approach a story with news, it's just that the format is totally different, number one. Right. I don't choose to rhyme my words when I'm putting a package together for news.
But it can be fun, though, for those paying attention.
Some people do that. Some people do the puns and the rhyming. I don't always do that. So going into this, I was like, it has to be short sentences and the words can't be too big. The emotions can't be like too deep because this is a children's book.
Right.
So I went into it with that mindset and I just like chickens and hay. How do I start with chickens and hay? And I went from there. In the most random times of the day, I would just sit back and I would just write. I would write, delete, type, delete. I've done a lot of book interviews with other authors, and so I turn to them for advice, or, you know, I've talked to them about it through the years and just giving them my idea and just think, I want to write a children's book. I remember this little girl, literally a 6-year-old girl in Louisiana who I interviewed when I worked out there. She wrote a children's book, and I was talking to her mom after I came up with the idea, like, how do I get this started? What do I do? So I had a lot of outside guidance early on that I just kind of harbored until I was ready to get started. And when it was time to start, I just wrote. And that's what I do with TV. You know, when you have a focal point or a person, you write around that. And in this case, my focal point in person was Tiffany, but I just had to be shorter and I had to write my words.
And then the last question I have is how did it feel? Because now you've been, in many ways, more ways than one, personally affected, and you know this is a passion project that you had multiple years in the making. When you finally got, like, not even like everything is done, illustration, when you finally got mailed the first copy of the book, how did that feel after years and years of work invested into it?
Crazy. I still can't believe it. It's been a month since it's been out, and I look at it every day, and I am truly in awe. Because I just can't believe it actually came to reality. To say you want to do something is one thing, but to do it and not let your own timeline get in the way of that. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I struggle with celebrating myself, but I'm really, really proud of myself for sticking with the goal and taking that idea at the most random time, you know? And like, I'm literally in urgent care, sick as a dog, and I'm saying, I think it's time we go forward with the book. So it was just really, really, I was in awe. I really was in awe, and I still can't believe it. I feel like I should be doing something else now. And the way the publishing company communicates is like all through an app. So all of our communicating was done on one app called Basecamp. Super cool. And so I'm like still checking the app. Like, am I missing anything? Is there something I should be doing?
Are we good? Are we good?
Yeah. Like, do I need to bother them again with something? What's going on? Like, are we, should we work on the next project? But right now I'm just really, really proud of how it all came together, and just trying to take little nuggets for next time. Like, next time I will have a hard copy. I do want a hardback. And then just having other characters involved in the next book. I think kids want to see more interaction, which is some feedback that I've gotten. But it just feels good. I know that's cliche, but it feels really, really, really good.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Like, now it's out there. Now there's for the world to see. And now, like, to your point, it was like, well, everyone's going to ask the next question, like, what's next? And you discuss what could be the future for Tiffany. But it's kind of crazy that you're even like, I'm sure there were things that you weren't thinking about when you started this process, that now that it's out, you're like, well, now we can do this. Now we can do that. Now I might even be I might be going into voice work now. I might be even the voice of Tiffany. I don't know. We'll figure things out when we get there. But like, it's kind of crazy how like these things evolve. And just talking about, Ernesto and I's personal experience with this podcast, it's just crazy that, Ernesto and I, we've been friends since college, and it was a thing where we had reconnected through work. We were finally on the same shift, and then Ernesto, we were just talking about movies. Ernesto's like, we should do a podcast. Like, that's a great idea. Whenever that happened, and he's like, "No, tomorrow. You good tomorrow? You're free. I'm free tomorrow. I'm off."
You know me. I'm a doer. So
yeah, and he's like, "We'll just figure it out." They're like, "Whatever. Yeah, just hit record. We'll figure it out. We talk all the time for free. It's fine. They're like, it's good. We're good." And what can that evolve into after so much time? It's kind of it's a beautiful thing when you think about it. Just you have those creative juices flowing. That like now that this one thing is out, that's not it. Like this is you spent all this time getting, this book out, and now it's like, well, now the possibility ends. If I can do this, then I can do anything.
You can do it all. I look at it as like my first TV job. That's what I keep comparing it to. Like my first TV job was in a small town called St. Joseph, Missouri. And you did everything. I anchored, reported, was a photographer, assignment desk editor, producer, all the things. But I learned, and I would do it again if I had to. This is how I feel about the first book. It's like, even if there isn't a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever, getting over the fear of, number one, like marketing yourself it could be scary. And people in the day and age with social media and society, it's like, well, if I don't get this amount of likes, and that means I'm not successful. That's not true. Like, you're doing it. That alone is worth celebrating. And so I've celebrated every bit of this, from the point of just releasing it, getting it out, getting over the fears of what someone would think, what someone would say, or people being like, oh, it's another children's book. Whatever. That's how you feel. That's great. But I'm really happy. And it was a reminder to choose joy and to just go for what you want. Don't let yourself stop you from doing something. And, no matter how long it takes, like you said, you've got that itch, you've got that idea, do it. Don't let it just sit for too long. Water that idea and watch it grow on its own, no pun to Tiffany's Growing Garden, but nurturing your flowers, nurturing that gift. And I'm really, really excited for the juices that I've got now. And the things, it's, the things that I really, really want to do. I'm excited. And it means the world to me to know my parents love it too. Yeah. So super exciting.
Well, we're excited to see whatever you're going to put out next. We would love to help you be a part of that journey. And however we can help you, we would love to do that for you. So tell the people, where can they find your book?
You can get it on Amazon, Amazon.com. I would love, and we're working toward getting it in retail stores, but right now, Amazon.com, search Tiffany's Growing Garden. I would love to do some book signings in the future. We're working on those. It's very awkward for me, believe it or not. Like, I have a terrible signature, and I'm using my married last name for the book, Christina W. Smith. So now I'm like trying to sign with an S, and like, it's just first world problems. First world problems. Yes. Things, my own insecurities, we all battle it, but but for right now, go to Amazon, search Tiffany's Growing Garden. I also have a link on my Instagram, C Watkins TV, and tell a friend to tell a friend. All the proceeds benefit her scholarship at one of the behavioral centers where she received treatment. The very last center she went to before she passed, University Behavioral Center, right here in Orlando. And it'll help 3 high school seniors in Central Florida get a little cash before college. There you go. So we're super, super, super fortunate to be able to do this.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, and go to Amazon, buy the book. Appreciate the words. Am I making you cry? Maybe tear up a little.
I'm surprised I didn't. I'm like, when I tell y'all the journey I have been on to be able to talk about my girl without shedding a tear, like.
But it
takes time, my friends. It takes time.
But it's so amazing for you to be so open about it, because so many people, as we've seen, they suffer in silence, and they don't realize how many other people have that shared experience, and it really just takes that moment of being the first one to kick it off, because nobody ever wants to be the first, but everybody doesn't mind responding to somebody else's initial, so.
You're not wrong.
Right. That part, and remembering to give yourself grace. Like, give yourself grace. If it doesn't happen overnight, like, it's not going to happen overnight. Mm-hmm. Be patient with yourself, and just cherish the journey. This was such a fun process. I loved getting the illustrations back. I love seeing the sketches. Even tracking the audiobook was so fun. It was so fun. Guys, I did it in my closet. Okay. And it stays, I played it for you, Ernesto. So, like, it
sounded good.
This closet pretty.
I like this closet. It sounds like she went to like a professional studio, like recorded.
I talked into the clothes to give it some hollowness, and work from home life during the pandemic taught me how to be able to do things
right.
like that on your own.
That's so true. But that's just a testament to maybe somebody who's wanting to do that when, and now they listen to you say where you wrote your phone on your notes app and and you went through this process and you were able to get it done, that a lot of it some people just need to get out of their own way. Like stop restricting yourself from doing the things that you know that you're destined to do. You prove that.
Ooh. Period.
Period.
And honestly,
for supporting that.
Oh, absolutely.
No problem. Absolutely. And also, you never know who you're going to inspire to do other things. Like, and they might not want to make a children's book. That this could inspire other people to just go out and do something. Yeah. Something you've always wanted to do. Even as simple as last night for me, I canceled up subscription. That was a big win last night.
Nice.
That was amazing.
Saving money.
It's simple. Saving money, y'all. That's great.
Yes, it is.
You have no idea how much Megan has been telling me. Like, Matt, you got to cancel. It's like, yeah, but I know I have to, but it's like I keep forgetting. It's like, well, just do it. What are you doing? It's like, well, there's whole this and that. It's like, no, just do it. And then you did it. I feel great. There's so much little monies in my pocket now. It's fantastic.
Don't be lazy.
It's amazing.
Get out of your own.
Feeling.
Get out of your own way, Matthew.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Optimal joy and happiness. Like, celebrate the wins in your life. It doesn't matter what it is, whether canceling a subscription, getting heat back on in your house, like whatever it is. You fix something, like be happy and don't wait for others to celebrate you. You celebrate you first and bring that joy to someone else. And, we need that.
Absolutely.
So, and it's free.
Period.
Period.
Period. Happiness is free, y'all.
Get you some.
Well, Christina, it's been amazing having you back on the show. This was a fantastic time. Just kind of talking with you again, catching up before we even started recording, as well as just going through this movie, going through this book. This was a great time. Thank you for taking the time out to just join us once again. And honestly, these are the reasons why we do this.
Oh, 100%.
This is the reason.
Like, we've been looking forward to this episode all week. We're like, oh, I'm so excited. And especially after I saw the movie, I was like, if I wasn't excited before, I'm like really excited now.
I know, she's like, it's a good movie. What are you talking about? Are you kidding me?
A good movie with good people.
So fitting.
Yes.
Yeah. So mean. No, thank you guys. I'm so proud of y'all and the work you're doing. And I see everything you push out on social media, and to be able to do this and give people, again, joy, right? Talking about things people can relate to that bring people together. Things that you can disagree with and not get in a fight over. Yeah. Like, it's so nice, and it's such a breath of fresh air, and I'm so honored you guys had me back.
Oh,
yes.
We're just waiting. We're just waiting for you to open yourself up to come back. We would love to. Whenever you want to come back, just let me know. If there's a movie you see in the future, you already know.
You just gotta ask. All you gotta do is ask.
Christina, you have an open invitation. You just gotta if you see like, damn, I really want to talk about this movie, you just gotta let me know and I will pencil you in.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Christina's coming back on next week to talk about our next movie, and it's gonna be good. She don't even know what it is.
Yeah. It's 3.5 hours long.
3.5. She goes,
I think I'm busy.
Yeah. I gotta think. I gotta do that thing.
I got called on special assignment.
Absolutely. Yep. That special song.
Only.
Yeah. And then along with your socials, we'll also be posting a link to the book and where we can buy it. We'll be posting that in the description on when we post the episode and all the things that'll be out there for you guys to go down there and click there and check it out. I mean, it's an amazing book. I think it should be shared with the world.
Thank you, guys. It's still surreal looking at that. I'm like, that's crazy.
It's a real thing. That's a real thing you did.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. Like, really real.
It's really real. And it's out now. Right there. It says it right there. There. It's out now. What a great time this is. It's always great to have these special. I mean, every episode that we do is always great, but every now and then we have these special ones that just makes it just a lot better. A lot better to have it. That's the whole reason why we do these. If you want more from us, you can come on our social media channels. Follow us everywhere on Facebook, YouTube, and as of right now, TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at @box_office_bingers. The fun, as much as fun as we're having, does not end here. It continues on our social media channels, so be sure to subscribe or follow or like any one of them. All one's good enough, but all is preferred. But we're not going to pressure anyone to do all. But whatever you got is great enough for us. We really do appreciate it. I don't know.
Man, apply the pressure. Hit all, follow all of them.
Apply the pressure.
About going for what you want. You want to follow.
You need to celebrate yourself.
That's right. Christina's like, don't just settle for one. You have so many, all of them. They need to go everywhere. Your face needs to be seen.
Stop giving people options.
Say what you want.
Say it with your chest.
She's right. I want you to follow all of them because each one does offer something a little different. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. Facts.
That's all I'm saying.
There we go.
Oh my God, this has been a great time. Yes. Thank you, Christina, again for just joining us. We will love to have you back on soon next week. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. And just pencil it now.
Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt.
Ernesto Santos. See ya.